So I'm going to do a video about attachments, and I mean energetic attachments, etheric attachments, astral entities and etheric energies, and attachments that are attached to your etheric aura and feed off you. And like parasites, because they are parasites, but they're energetic parasites, they will put thoughts into your mind and put you in a position where you will do things and you will become a battery in some level. Whether it's a sexual attachment, an energy that's a discarnate being that attaches to your lower chakra system and utilizes you in a way that can make you more promiscuous, and therefore through your promiscuity can draw off energy from you and your sexual partners that you have, or attachments in regards to entities that attach themselves to you that feed on your downward spiral of thought processes about how bad your life is and how negative like your life is, and any negative thoughts or heavy dense thoughts that you manifest in your head, because they are drawing out as like a vampiric leech. They're pulling up that energy from your experience and trauma. You're visualizing the experiences, and by having this experience, they're drawing it out of you and sucking it and nourishing themselves through these thought processes. Now, I've had both those experiences. Personally, a sexual attachment that made me very promiscuous and also fed off me, and also an experience where I had a few times actually, astral entities attached to my etheric body, and sent me into a downward spiral of enormous trauma and thought processes and memories of really traumatic experiences in my life, and fed off me big time. Now, I'm going to start with the latter rather than the former and tell you about my experience I had when my best experience I can remember anyway, of when I was had an attached to my etheric energy. And it's quite a wild story, but it's a story that happened in 1996, 97 actually. It was the autumn, the beginning of the autumn, late summer in 1997. I had met this girl called Annette, who I knew as Moonbear from a past life. I knew her as Moonbear from a past life, and she was a Native American, a First Nations woman, a Plains Indian, and but I called her Moonbear, not rather than Annette, but her name was Annette. And Annette and I became lovers in the late summer of 1997, and Annette and I when we used to work together, picking apples together, and when we in Motueka, top of the South Island. And when we one weekend decided to go away with her friends who she'd met these bunch of people that she knew who had a van. We were going to go over to the Golden Bay, Takaka, for the weekend, one weekend. And when we were driving over the hill towards on Saturday towards Takaka, I had this really strong impression come into my mind that I was going to see this girl called Valentina, who I'd known for a couple of years back and forth. I'd gone back and forth from Dunedin to Motueka in the early 90s. I met this beautiful girl called Valentina, and she was based from Christchurch, but she was also spending a lot of time in the Nelson region. And I had this really strong impression that we were going to see her as soon as we got to Takaka, down the hill. And we got to Takaka, went into the Whole Mill Cafe in Takaka, walked in the door, and there in front of the display cabinet was Valentina. And I walked up towards her, and there's Valentina! My premonition was right? I saw her, Val! Hey Val! She turned around, saw me, didn't recognise me, which I thought was really strange because we'd known each other for about 2 years over the summers, and we were close. We weren't that close, but we were close enough to know each other. And when I saw her, she turned around and looked at me with this look on her face, and then she kind of she called me Gabriel, and she put her arms around me and gave me a hug. And when she began to hug me, I felt this seething, deep, black mass, like a cape, come around me and begin to constrict me and pull me into her. I went, whoa! I let go of him. What the fuck? I said, what's going on with you, man? And she said, I'm preparing for flight. I was like, okay, dude. So I went outside the back into the garden bar area, and I saw a friend of mine, Richard, this German cat, and he's reading the paper, and he flicked it down, and he said to me, if you've seen Valentina, stay the fuck away from her. And I was like, hang on a minute. I walked up to him, sat in front of him, and said, what's going on, bro? He's like, last week she was caught and only not Onehunga, Onehata, I think it's the name of the place, between Rangihatia and Onehata, which is, I believe, is between Rangihatia and Collingwood, Takaka, Rangihatia, Collingwood, Onehata. I think this is where the muscle in is. Forgive me for my geography if I got it wrong. But she was caught in this particular location at 3 in the morning, breaking into someone's house, accusing the people in the house that her baby had been kidnapped by these people. Now, she didn't have a baby as far as I knew. And what had happened to Val is she had a Kundalini awakening at 21, 22, and it was so massive for her, it completely blew her perception out, and she was living several lifetimes at once. And she was not grounded in the slightest. So everyone was basically avoiding her and being cruel to her and being mean to her because they didn't understand what she was going through, or nor could they help her either. So I remember leaving the cafe, and she came running out of the cafe with my friends and I went back to the van. She came running out of the cafe, and I knew I was going to go to a party at Richard's place at Bird's Clearing that night. And she came running up to me and she said, Gabriel, it's me, Morgana. And I was like, Val, you're not a witch. She said, it's me, Gabriel, it's me, Morgana. And I was like, man, dude, I'm sorry. I know Valentina, I don't know Morgana. I know Valentina. I left it there, didn't think anything of it. Went on my way. That night, we did the dog leg Inca Trail up to Richard's place at Bird's Clearing. This amazing chalet, a couple of chalets in this incredible spot called Bird's Clearing. These two like wooden chalets were. Got to this party, and the party began. It was as back in the day, then it was a lot of psych trance music and a lot of fun times, shall we say. I'm not going to get too deep into that mix, but we had a lot of fun times. But then we went up to, there's 2 houses. There's a lower house where they had the music, looking out over the Golden Bay, beautiful huge window. I've been in this house before and stayed there for a couple of days with some friends earlier in the summer. Amazing location. And the top house, which was basically empty, we had the fireplace going, a bunch of people hanging around talking, this kind of conversating and connecting. And my friends were, and my partner at the time, Annette was. And I was up at the top of the house, and someone walked into the top house and said, fuck, is that girl downstairs, down in the other house, who's fucking screaming her head off, is driving everyone crazy. I thought, what the fuck? So we all went down to the house to see what was going on. And over the sound of the psych trance, dum, 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 music, you could hear someone literally wailing. And people were standing up against one side of the wall, all pointing towards where these clothes racks were, against the window, looking out over the Golden Bay. I thought, what the fuck are you guys doing? I went over to the clothes rack, pulled the clothes apart, and there's my friend Valentina, sitting down on the ground, bawling her eyes out, screaming, my baby, my baby, my baby. And I went, fuck you guys, you fucking assholes, what are you fucking doing here? And I picked her up, come on Val, let's go outside, got some of her friends and my friends, took her outside, stood around her in a circle, outside under the stars, and we began to tell her how much we loved her, how much we cared for her, how much we just wanted to be around her and healing her in the best way we possibly could, through toning, through affirmation, to telling her how much we loved her and how much we cared for her, but she couldn't hear us. In the state that I was in at the time, I was very susceptible to energies non-physical. I had no strong boundaries, none whatsoever. The entities that had surrounded Valentina and that were feeding off her, and they were literally plethora, they were legion, feeding off her, began to attach themselves to my etheric. In this process of attaching to my etheric, I began to spiral down. All these traumatic experiences from my childhood, all this conditioning, all these horrible things that my father had said to me, all these experiences that I'd had in my life began to fucking pop up into my mind. I began to spiral downward, and these things began to feed off me. I could totally feel their presence around my body. I was in a place of my resonance where no one wanted to talk to me or be around me. It was fucking terrifying. I was so alone, so desperate, so broken by these entities feeding off me, bringing me down. Even my own partner was giving me the push, I can't deal with you right now, energy. I remember going over the fence to watch the sunrise. I missed the sunrise because I've been bawling my eyes out for like 4.5 hours by myself somewhere because this energy was these entities were bringing me down. I was sitting by myself for about 2.5, 3 hours watching my girlfriend for a little while that time, putting Valentina down into her lap and calming her down and healing her in a way that no one else could. I was so amazed by her energy and by the way that she held her in space and healed Valentina, put Valentina into her lap, and Annette stroked her hair, and then Valentina went to sleep, and she put her to sleep. Annette was so strong in her power, so strong in her boundaries, incredible woman. I was breaking down. I missed the sunrise, walked up towards the sunrise. Everyone was coming back over the fence, which I thought was actually dock land, Department of Conservation land, but it was actually a fucking private farm. I climbed over the fence by myself to watch the sunrise, which had already risen up, to catch the last few moments of it. And being in the state that I was, and being in the resonance that I was, this farmer came up on his quad bike with his son, with a shotgun on the back of his fucking quad bike, and said to me, "What the fuck are you doing on my land, you fucking hippie? Get the fuck off my land right now." I said, "Isn't this a dock area? Isn't this the dock, Abel Tasman?" I said, "No, it's my fucking land. Now get the fuck off my land or I'll fucking shoot you." Those were his words verbatim. So in tears, I got off the land, plopped over the fence. He waited for me to walk down the fucking hill before him and his son went off on their bike down back into the farm again. Fuck knows what his problem was. Anyway, went down the hill towards where my friends were, and they were all about to go to sleep because we had been up all night. And I heard this clear audience message, and it was so fucking clear. And I remember the voice very well. One of my guides, and she said, "You must go to Poo Springs right fucking now and get in the water. Right now." And I did. I got my friends. I said, "Listen, guys, we're going to go to Poo Springs right now. Get in the fucking van. I'm driving. Let's go. And they were like, "What the fuck? Like, we want to go to sleep." I said, "You can sleep on the fucking way down the hill. We've got to go right now." So I remember driving down this fucking crazy Inca Trail track down to, well, I was still no sleep, down to the main road. I drove, banged it down to Poo Springs, pulled the van up. My friends in the van were going like, "Why the fuck we come here for?" I remember getting out of the van. A bus of Japanese tourists were coming back from the springs. I'm running towards the springs. My clothes are flying off as I'm running towards the springs. I'm literally naked by the time I get to the end of the trail. This Japanese tourist taking pictures of me. I dove into the springs, which now is illegal, by the way. I dove into the springs. I remember those entities being washed away instantaneously. Gone. I came up out of the water and I was back to how I was before this experience. The entities had been washed away by the energy of the spring, and the entities of the spring had taken these energies and taken them away from me. And I was clear of them. But I'll never forget how it felt to have those energies around me and attached to me. From that moment onwards, I created a very strong energetic boundary around myself so that could never happen to me ever again. But I recognized the experience in other people by having my own empirical experience of that experience, of knowing what it was like to have that experience, of having entity attachment. I could recognize it in somebody else immediately. And in my life, I have seen countless times of entity attachment to people, men and women, in all kinds of different situations. I can tell right away, from my own personal experience, my empirical experience, when someone has got an attachment to them in that sense, an energetic attachment to them. It's quite obvious to me. Energetically, I can feel it right away. Now, the former, the sexual attachment. My own personal experience with this came in my early 20s. When I was acting in ways that were far from that had a real lack of integrity when it came to sexual connection. I was with women at the time that who were offering more to me than I was available to actually experience. I didn't feel safe in connection in regards to a relationship, so therefore in that situation I would sabotage every connection I ever had, because for me being close to someone emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally meant pain and suffering. So rather than experiencing that, I would energetically push women away that wanted to get close to me, because if they got close to me, all I would feel would be pain because of the abandonment I would feel when they left me, because of the nature of who I was and my experiences and my resonance. That was my experience over and over and over and over again. So in this situation, I was acting in ways where I was cheating on my girlfriends and cheating on lovers as well, not being open and honest, being fearful. In that fearful state, I began to resonate in a way that I was bringing lovers into my life that had their own personal attachments. Women in my life that had attachments on them in that sexual sense. I began to see the barbaric, animalistic side of the sexual connection. It wasn't passionate. It was very animalistic and very spooky, kind of like horror movie kind of spooky. Like when I was having sex with these beautiful women, often I'd have an experience where I felt like something was sucking something out of me. Like it literally was energetically taking my energy and my sexual experience, taking me to a place where I was losing my sense of what I would consider to be dignity in my sexual experiences, and acting in ways that were far, far from where I wanted to be in regards to sexual connection. And in that dignity, I began to debase my sexual experiences began to be very debasing in that sense. And when I had that deeply energetic connection with a woman, and there was an attachment around us at the time, I would become more and more attracted to that particular woman, because the nature of my experience and the energetic confidence I would feel in that experience, I felt more and more drawn to having more and more experiences with that woman, because the nature of the energy was so raw and so animalistic and so deeply connected in a way that made me feel unsafe. But in that unsafeness, I recognized myself as a child, how I felt unsafe. As a child, I felt safe in that unsafety. That makes sense. It's a paradox, but it's true. When I felt unsafe, growing up in a situation where I felt unsafe for most of my childhood, being in a situation sexually where I felt unsafe felt normal to me, because of the nature of my sexual abuse as well as a child. I felt completely at peace with being in a place that was unsafe until I got stronger boundaries energetically. I felt safe in that place. So therefore, my actions in that way took me to a place where these entities that were feeding off these women took me along for the ride. I was more and more drawn to that more debasing, drawn to a more debasing act, drawn to more debasing woman, drawn to more experiences that were really quite primal and not brutal, but bestial experiences in my sexual experiences. And then I began to understand the nature of the sexual connection here and what was happening only after I was possessed in the mid-90s. And then I understood what was going on with these connections sexually. It was like something was moving through these women and utilizing my orgasmic energy and taking it from me, and then saying, oh yeah, this is a nourishment here for me. I get yours and hers. And of course, being possessed, having that possession experience for me really opened up my ability to tune into what was moving through somebody. In that sense, I was able to pull right back and go like, whoa, Nelly. And at the same time this was happening as well, before I was actually possessed, I was having succubuses visit me due to the contract that I made in my previous lifetime as a Buddhist monk. So therefore, also having succubuses and succubuses visiting me at least once a month to have my energetic exchange of my crazy ass sexual dreams, and to feed the master, the overlord, who had given me these dreams, and sending his legion of servants really to do his bidding for him, so he could get my energy. So I was in a place where I was experiencing this, so I knew what it was like. So I was like, whoa, man, this is not safe for me. This is not cool for me. And once again, I'm able to perceive, due to the nature of that empirical experience, when I meet someone, a woman or a man, that is being manipulated by an energetic being, non-physical, or beings, plural, that are manipulating and utilizing people as a means of a battery, literally a battery, or a parasitic entity, or a vampiric entity It's utilizing someone's sexual energy, which is the ability to create universes, the ability to create life, the most powerful energy that a human body can create, a man or a woman's body can generate, in my perspective anyway. Others might say something completely different, but my perspective can generate, utilizing their energy for their own sustenance and nourishment. So today, for me, in the situation I find myself in, and understanding these experiences, having my own personal empirical experiences of both those experiences, has allowed me to create stronger boundaries, with people, and to understand that when there is something going on here, often, it isn't a pain body that's moving through someone to get fed. It's something else that wants to get fed, whether it's a sexual deviancy or debasement or profanity, or it's a energetic projection or an energetic motivation to bring me into a situation where I'm out of balance, and that out of balance state can create a conflict, or that will feed it. Much like a pain body, but not quite the same. It's sort of, it's close, but not quite. In my perspective, not quite the same. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mateo. I'll see you again soon.